Okay, today we're doing Inseam Pocket. The pattern is on the assignment link. If you just click on assignment Inseam Pocket, you should be able to get the pattern. I was actually fortunate. I have some tissue a friend gave me, and so it goes in my printer, and I went ahead and printed out on the tissue. It's a little lighter and easier to use, kind of handy. And then the other thing that's happened is I've run out of muslin. This is where we're locked down in our homes, so I'm just using my husband's old dress shirts. I usually save them and try to repurpose them, and you can kind of see that this is where the placket is of a sleeve, so I'm just going to use that. I folded my fabric over a little bit because the pattern says to cut two, so there's 2 layers underneath there. And with this pattern you can see that there is a grain line. That grain line I'm running parallel to the stripes here that are on the fabric. Put a couple pins in there. You can just put it along your torn edge, or the grain line is fine too. Don't be too finicky about that. I do want to make sure I cut out that little notch, and then kind of cut around this whole thing, notch outward. All right, that is that piece. And then the second piece you have to cut out is basically an 8 by 8 inch square cut in half. So you're going to have a 4 inch by 8 inch. And when we do that, we won't have that little notch that's going to be outward. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you just cut yours in half, I'm going to show you how to mark here without notches, any room to cut that notch out. You're just going to use some chalk and mark on both sides, front side, the back side. Just match them up. Another way to do it is kind of open it up here and just mark both of them at the same time. Kind of slide your chalk across both of them. Just something to give you that little mark so you have it there. Hopefully those are dark enough you can see them there. And then the other 2 marks that you want to put on are these dots. So your pattern piece would be on top of your sample, just like so. And I like to mark these dots by using a pin. Just stick a pin right through the dot like so. And I'll stick one through the other side here. Line up your edge of your fabric to the edge of the pattern if you haven't cut it out completely. Make sure not to use the edge of the pattern or the paper. And then you just kind of swipe your chalk right across that pin, and same thing on that pin, and it'll put a dot right where the pins are stuck into the fabric there. I'm going to top here and do both sides, the front and the back here. And there we go. We have our dots on. Go ahead and remove your pins, take your pattern off, and you can see notch there, two dots. Same on the other side, notch and 2 dots. So those become important. Line up points. Your pattern there labeled to cut 4 inches by 8 inches, so these are 2 of them. When a pattern says cut 2, it means that you end up with 2 pieces. So I have 1 and 2 as opposed to, cutting it twice. So I'm going to pause here and go ahead and cut this out, and then we'll move over to the sewing machine. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to cut this out. So cut around the pattern just using your large scissors. Sorry, things have gotten out of the camera here. Get them up to where I can see what I'm doing, hopefully. Okay, so here I want to show you how to cut these notches. It's really important that your notches represent exactly what they are. So this is a single notch. I'm going to move that pin out of my way. It's kind of right where you need to see. So take the scissors, use the scissors lined up right to the notch, and then snip. And push all that fabric out of the way, and then snip all the way up and beyond that stitch, or beyond that notch, so that you can then come in from the other angle there and push all those little notches down and out of your way, and then continue clipping upward. So you should end up with a little notch that represents exactly. There you go. Okay, go ahead and take your pins out. Occasionally you do accidentally chop off a notch, and that's not a problem. Just go and mark it with chalk. just like we did with our little 4x8s here. Okay, so the 4x8s here are representing the garment. We need to attach the pockets to each of them. So the garment would be like one side seam here on your pants, and one would represent the front of the pants, and one would represent the back of the pants. I'm going to lay those flat down so they're kind of opposite each other. Take me a minute here to figure out which way they're going to go. I want to have right sides up, and I want to have my dots up so I can see what's going on. Then you're going to take your pattern pieces of your pocket, and you're going to line up your notches to where I had marked the notch on the chalk, like so. There we go. And same with the other one. Again, it's opposite, creating opposites. That one I accidentally chopped off that notch, so I just am lining it up, matching what I'm doing on the other side, which is totally fine. So put your pins in perpendicular. Just like that. And now we're ready to head on over to the sewing machine and stitch at 3/8 all the way down from top to bottom, making sure we back stitch. And then we're stitching at 3/8 because when we construct our pants, they'll be sewn at 5/8, and you want the pocket seam to actually be tucked kind of into the side seam a little bit. It'll make a little more sense once we get stitching. So let's head on over to the machine and get stitching. Okay, continuing on with our inseam pockets. Remember, you want to make sure you are creating opposites. So when I look at these two, I've got my roundness going opposite of each other. That is a key to this. You are going to guide on the 3/8 guideline. Count over from 5 to the left, so 3/8 a little bit smaller. Do your back stitch at the beginning. All the way to the end of the pocket, back stitch there. Go ahead and cut your threads nice and short, like so. And then from this point, the pattern would tell you to go over and press the seam towards the pocket. So that means that basically that seam back there is going that direction towards the pocket. And I'm going to skip the iron so I can just keep moving through this and just do a good finger press on this, like so. Just double check that is definitely going towards the pocket, which it is. Here's your pocket, there's the seam. All right, and then at this point, you're going to take your two pieces. I've already done my other one. All right, and you're going to make them go right sides together. So inside where there's no seam allowance seam, it's all nice and pretty. You're going to put these right sides together like so. And everything should match up pretty good. This is something you cut all at the same time, so there shouldn't be anything off. Actually, I'm going to be sewing from this side, so let me pin on this side. Pocket should line up all around the edge here, which it does. And then you really have to reference the pattern directions I have online. In the sewing directions here, I'll go over it, but it tends to get a little bit confusing for people. So your first stitch is going to go from the top, guiding on 5/8, down to where the dot is. And it's kind of hard to see the dot on these, so let me grab my pattern real quick and just show you that. Okay, so if I had my pattern piece back on here, the dot would be right about there. So I'm going to go ahead and put my pin there so I know where to stop, since that dot is vanished. And then the other dot is up here. So I'm going to do that up there. Okay, so what I do is I go from the top to the dot, and I'm going to stop and cut my threads. So let's do that one first. And again, you're guiding on 5/8. So back stitch at the beginning. We're going to right where that pin was. Like so. And then you cut your threads, and you're going to start over here. The top part will end up going into the waist casing, so you don't need to stitch anything across the top. You just need to go over here. Go ahead and go back onto 5/8 and guide around this edge. Remember, these are half size, so corners are a little sharper and harder to handle. That's okay. Just put your needle down and do some pivots. And then from here, it's a little bit tricky, but you've got to shoot up towards the pin where we put in here. So again, the seams are all going that direction. Everything's kind of flat. And I'm just going to kind of keep angling until I hit right where that pin is going in. Right there. And because this was sewn at 3/8 and now I'm sewing at 5/8, I should just be past my 3/8 line by 2/8 of an inch, and then just follow that straight down. Do another pivot. So it's one motion to get yourself all the way around and close up that pocket. Clip those threads. So this one came from the top here all the way around up to where that dot is, pivot, and come on back down. Got a little crooked with my stitching up top there. And what that gives you when you open up is the original seam is kind of tucked inside of where your 5/8 inch seam is, so that's good. And then if you were to press this, see how your pocket's kind of hidden inside there? Even with my different fabric, you can't even really see it. And then that's where your hand goes in, and you have your change area down here, or whatever you're putting down in your pocket. The patterns at this point always tell you to run a baste across the top of the pocket so that it stops it from flapping around while you're constructing the pants. I have skipped this step, and I end up sometimes with a pocket on my rear end instead of in the front of my pants. So you would put it towards the front of the pant and just run a little baste. No back stitch, just do a little baste like so. Cut up these threads. Do a little baste just to hold that towards the front of the pant. So, and then there's your little inseam pocket, because it is literally sewn into that seam. All right, perfect.